I once met a man who said, every time I spend an hour with that woman, I need a full day to recover. I smiled, thinking maybe he was being dramatic, until I met the woman. Friends, let me tell you, it was like sitting in a room with a vacuum cleaner that sucked the joy out of everything within a 10-foot radius. Now, I'm not saying she was a bad person. No, sir. But she carried something with her. Bitterness, maybe pain, maybe an old wound that never healed. But whatever it was loud, constant, and exhausting. And it got me thinking, not everyone who shakes your hand is your friend. Not everyone who smiles at you has your best interest at heart. Some folks, without even realizing it, carry toxicity like a rattlesnake carries venom. And if you don't know how to spot it, you'll end up drained, discouraged, and doubting your own goodness. You see, recognizing toxic people isn't always about identifying villains. No one walks around with a sign that says, "I'm here to ruin your peace of mind." They don't dress like cartoon characters, twirling mustaches or laughing maniacally. No, many of them come dressed in politeness, covered in compliments, wrapped in charm. They can be friends, family, coworkers, even someone you loved with your whole heart once. But here's the key. They consistently bring confusion, pain, or chaos into your life. They take more than they give. They always seem to be at the center of drama. And worst of all, they leave you doubting yourself more than believing in yourself. I was speaking at a little church gathering once, and a young woman came up to me with tears in her eyes. She said, "I don't know what's wrong with me. Every time I talk to my sister, I feel small, like I'm never good enough. I try to love her, I try to listen, but I always walk away feeling like I've been hit by a truck." I leaned in and gently said, "Sweetheart, it may not be you. It might just be that the truck keeps driving over your soul because you keep lying in the road." Now, I didn't mean to sound harsh, but sometimes we have to face the truth in love. Sometimes the people we keep closest to us are the ones tearing us down piece by piece, not with fists, but with words, guilt, manipulation, and control. One of the biggest mistakes we make in life is assuming that someone who's been in our life the longest has earned the right to stay there the longest. Let me say that again. Just because someone's been in your life a long time doesn't mean they should stay in your life. Time served does not equal good behavior. Some folks are like anchors. They don't help you grow. They keep you stuck. And when you try to rise, they guilt you back into sinking. That's how you start recognizing toxic people. Not by the title they carry in your life, but by the effect they have on your soul. Now, I know this is uncomfortable. Nobody wants to think that their friend of 10 years, their cousin, their boss, or even their own spouse might be toxic. But you've got to learn to look at the fruit, not just the tree. I don't care how beautiful an apple tree looks from a distance. If the apples are rotting, it's a sick tree. The Bible says you'll know them by their fruit. That means not their intentions, not their excuses, not their sad stories, but the results of their actions in your life. Do they bring peace, encouragement, and support, or do they sow division, comparison, and self-doubt? That's not being judgmental, that's being wise. A toxic person often plays the victim in every story. Have you noticed that? They're never wrong, never the problem. If something went wrong, someone else caused it. If they hurt your feelings, you're being too sensitive. If they let you down, you expected too much. It's always about how the world is unfair to them. And here's the trap. They make you feel like you're the one who needs to change. You start thinking, maybe I am the problem. Maybe I should be more understanding, more patient, more forgiving. Now, don't get me wrong. Patience and forgiveness are powerful virtues. But friend, they are not meant to be chains that keep you locked in a prison with someone who refuses to grow, refuses to change, and refuses to take responsibility. I've known folks who apologize just to keep the peace, not because they were wrong, but because the toxic person would not rest until they made you feel guilty. That's emotional warfare, and it's deadly to your spirit. You can't be the only one trying to fix a relationship. If you're always bending, always giving, always apologizing, while the other person does nothing but take, criticize, or accuse, you're in a toxic cycle. And cycles don't end until someone decides to break them. Let me give you a little warning sign. If someone constantly brings out the worst in you, they're not healthy for you. You may be the most loving, peaceful, grounded person in the world, but around that one person you turn angry, anxious, or resentful. That's not who you are. It's who you become under their influence. And the people who truly love you will not keep triggering your worst traits. They'll help you be the best version of yourself. There was a time in my life when I kept toxic people around because I thought it was my Christian duty to love everyone, to never give up on anyone, to keep turning the other cheek. And yes, love is patient, love is kind, but love does not mean letting someone mistreat you endlessly. Love does not mean being a doormat. Even Jesus walked away from people. Even He called out hypocrites. And even He protected His peace. So if He can do it, so can you. You are allowed to walk away from people who consistently hurt you, confuse you, or dishonor the value God placed in you. Now here's another thing. Some toxic people are charming. Oh, they know exactly what to say. They'll flatter you when they want something, make you laugh, or pour on the sugar when things are going their way. But watch what happens when you say no. Watch how they react when you set a boundary, when you speak your mind, when you decide to live your truth. That's when the real person comes out. Because toxic people love control, and the moment they lose control over you, they try to twist the narrative. Suddenly you're selfish, cold, or disloyal. But that's not the truth. It's just their way of pulling you back into their drama. And let me say this as gently and firmly as I can. Just because someone is hurting does not give them the right to hurt you. Hurt people do hurt people, yes. But that's an explanation, not an excuse. We're all broken in some way, but some folks choose to heal, and others choose to bleed on everyone around them. You can have compassion for someone's pain without becoming the casualty of it. And this might hit close to home for some, but it needs to be said. If someone mocks your dreams, belittles your efforts, or constantly reminds you of your past mistakes, they are not for you. You were not created to live under the shadow of someone else's insecurity. You were created to shine, to grow, to thrive, and you cannot thrive in poisoned soil. Some people are like weeds. They choke the life out of everything good around them. And no matter how much you water them, speak life into them, or hope they'll change, they just keep draining the garden of your life. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is to pull the weed out, not because you don't love them, but because you finally decided to love yourself enough. So how do we know toxic people? We know them by the patterns, by the way we feel around them, by the way our spirit reacts after spending time with them. Do you feel lighter or heavier? Do you feel uplifted or diminished? Are you encouraged or discouraged? These are questions you have to ask yourself, not once, but consistently, because toxic patterns are not about one bad day or one argument. They are about repeated behavior that leaves you feeling less than you are. And if you don't identify it early, it will erode your joy, your confidence, and eventually your sense of self. One of the hardest things about identifying toxic people is accepting that they don't always look toxic. They don't always raise their voice, throw a tantrum, or hurl insults. Sometimes they do the damage with silence, with absence, with guilt, with quiet disapproval. It's not what they say, it's what they don't say. It's the way they withdraw love when you need it most, the way they disappear when you succeed or turn cold when you express a boundary. That kind of subtle toxicity is the most dangerous because it can make you feel crazy. You keep questioning yourself, wondering if you're being too sensitive, too dramatic, too needy, but deep down, your spirit knows something is wrong. I've seen folks stay in relationships for years, romantic or otherwise, where they felt like they were walking on eggshells. Every conversation was a minefield. Every honest word became a battle. They were so focused on not upsetting the other person that they forgot how to be themselves. Friend, if you can't be yourself around someone, you don't have a relationship. You have a performance. And eventually, pretending becomes exhausting. Living inauthentically is one of the greatest thieves of peace. Now, here's a truth that might rattle your cage a little. Sometimes, the toxic person is the one we've tried hardest to please. That's what makes it so tricky. Because our desire to be accepted, to be loved, to be enough for them clouds our judgment. We think if I can just be better, kinder, quieter, stronger, maybe they'll finally love me right. But listen to me, love that requires you to shrink yourself is not love. It's control, it's fear, it's manipulation dressed in affection. Real love celebrates who you are. It doesn't demand you to edit yourself to fit someone else's comfort. You may ask, well, how do I deal with someone I know is toxic, but I can't just cut them out of my life? That's a fair question, because some people you can't simply walk away from, at least not immediately. They may be your coworker, your sibling, even your parent. And I'm not here to tell you to burn bridges or become hard-hearted, but I'm telling you that you need boundaries like a farmer needs fences. Boundaries don't mean you don't love them. It means you love yourself enough to protect your peace. You can love someone from a distance. You can be kind without being close. And you can forgive without returning to the same level of access. Now, don't be surprised if the toxic person doesn't like your boundaries. They rarely do. Boundaries to them feel like betrayal because your lack of boundaries before gave them comfort. It let them call the shots, let them twist the truth, let them dump their emotional mess onto you. The moment you say, I won't allow this anymore, they'll accuse you of being selfish or cold. But don't fall for that trap. A healthy person respects boundaries. A toxic person resents them. That right there will tell you who you're really dealing with. And can I talk about something we all see but rarely name? Toxic people love to keep score. They remember every mistake you made in 2013, but conveniently forget every time you showed up for them, forgave them, prayed for them, or gave them grace when they didn't deserve it. They'll remind you of your failures, but never acknowledge their own. That's how they keep you feeling indebted, off balance, unsure of your worth. It's manipulation, plain and simple. And if you allow it to continue, it will keep you in a cycle of guilt, apology, and resentment. When you start recognizing these behaviors, it can shake you. You'll feel everything from anger to sadness to grief. That's normal, because you're not just losing a relationship, you're shedding an illusion. You're letting go of the idea that you could fix them, that you could be what they needed, that the love you gave would one day be returned the same way. And that kind of grief is real. But I promise you this, on the other side of that grief is peace, is clarity, is freedom. Because the day you stop negotiating your worth with toxic people is the day you start living like you were meant to live. There's a story about a man who carried a beautiful wounded bird in his hand for years. He kept tending to it, feeding it, hoping it would fly again. But the bird never healed, and it kept clawing at him, biting him, wounding him in return. One day he finally opened his hand and let the bird go. And for the first time he looked down and saw that his palm was bleeding. That's what it's like to finally let go of someone toxic. You didn't even realize how much pain you were carrying until you released it. Let me tell you what happens when you start stepping away from toxic people. You start breathing easier, you start laughing more, you start remembering who you were before the chaos. Your mind clears up, your heart opens again. You start attracting people who uplift you, not drain you, who see your light, not compete with it, who want to build with you, not use you as scaffolding for their own insecurities. You see, sometimes we get so used to dysfunction that we forget what healthy even feels like. But when you clear the room of toxic voices, you begin to hear God's voice again, the one that says, you are worthy, you are loved, you are enough. Some people were only meant to be a part of your story, not the whole book. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you can stop rereading the same painful chapter and start writing a new one. One filled with honesty, grace, and people who nourish your soul. Now, don't just go on a purge and start cutting everybody off. No, ma'am, no, sir. This isn't about being cold or harsh. This is about wisdom, about discernment, about asking yourself, does this relationship feed my spirit or starve it? If the answer is consistently starvation, you've got a decision to make, because your time, your energy, your peace, they are priceless. You don't owe them to people who only show up to take. I once had a young man tell me, I want to succeed so bad, but every time I take a step forward, someone close to me pulls me back with negativity. I asked him, why do you keep going back to that well when all it gives you is poison? And he said, because they're my people. I smiled and said, sometimes your people ain't your tribe. Blood makes you related. Loyalty, love, respect, and faith, that's what makes you family. You don't have to hate people to move on from them. You just have to love yourself enough to protect your purpose. Don't ever apologize for protecting your peace. Don't ever feel guilty for choosing peace over chaos. Don't ever let someone who refuses to change accuse you of being the problem just because you finally decided to grow. That's not pride. That's progress. And progress doesn't wait for people who refuse to take responsibility. You were made for more than survival. You were made to thrive, to build, to love deeply, to serve fully. And you cannot do that while being tied to people who drain your joy and confuse your mind. You've got to know when to help and when to heal and when to walk away so God can do the work only He can do in their life. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to a toxic person is not a long speech. It's just one word: enough. Enough of the guilt. Enough of the gaslighting. Enough of the pretending. Enough of sacrificing your well-being on the altar of someone else's dysfunction. You have one life, one beautiful God-given life. Don't waste it trying to please people who will never see your value no matter what you do. So if you're wondering how to know toxic people, start by listening to your spirit. Start by examining the fruit. Start by honoring what you already know, but maybe haven't had the courage to admit. And then little by little, step by step, start making choices that align with the peace, purpose, and promise God has placed inside you. Because you can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. And sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is finally walk away. So let me leave you with this truth. You are not responsible for fixing toxic people, but you are absolutely responsible for protecting your peace. You are not selfish for choosing joy. You are not cruel for creating distance. You are not weak for walking away. You are wise. You are growing. You are finally starting to love yourself the way you always should have. Life is too short to live in the shadow of someone else's bitterness. You were born to rise, not just survive. And that means surrounding yourself with people who don't just clap when you win, but pray for you when you're low, correct you with love when you're wrong, and walk beside you when the road gets tough. You don't owe anyone your energy, your loyalty, or your future if all they've ever given you is doubt, confusion, and pain. Choose better, live brighter, stand taller. Because when you finally free yourself from toxic ties, the real blessings begin to flow. And let me tell you, the best is still ahead. It's not behind you. It's not lost. It's not too late. It's waiting for the version of you that knows your worth and refuses to settle for less. That version is rising right now. Don't stop. Good luck on your journey. Protect your peace. Choose your circle wisely. And always Always believe in the beautiful power God put inside you. Thank you, and may your days ahead be full of peace, progress, and powerful people who lift you higher. God bless you.